So welcome to Module 2, and this module is the walking skeleton. And what is a walking skeleton? Well, a walking skeleton is a tiny implementation of the system that performs a small end-to-end function. It need not use the final architecture, but it should link together the main architectural components. And then the architecture and the functionality can evolve in parallel. Now our application is going to be made up of several parts. We're using a database, we're using an object relational mapper, we're using an API, and then we're using a JavaScript framework, Angular, for our user interface. And we want all of these components of our architecture to be working, and we want to prove that they're working before we then go on and build out the functionality of this application. So our application architecture is going to contain a database with a table with a couple of values in, that we then want to display on the HTML page that can be viewed by the client. And in between the database and the client is going to be the object relational mapper, that's entity framework that allows our API to send queries to this database. And then we're going to fetch these values via the API from our SPA, our Angular application. And our goal of this particular module is to ensure that all of these pieces can work together and we can display these values on the client at the end. So how are we going to achieve this? Well, we're going to do this in this module by first of all creating the WebAPI project. We'll review the files that are created by the .NET CLI. That's the tool we're going to be using to create our WebAPI. Then we're going to ensure our WebAPI actually runs successfully. We'll create our database, and to do this we'll use the code first approach, or the model first approach, as it's sometimes called. Then we're going to use source control to check in all of our changes. We'll create the Angular application. We'll then configure our Angular application to fetch data from our API. And then we're going to bind the data we get back from the API to the HTML so that we can then display it on the page. And during this, we're also going to add support for Bootstrap and Font Awesome so that we can make our styling of our application significantly easier than starting from scratch with CSS. So as with any module in this course, we'll look at a before and after so we can see what we're actually working towards. Now, in this particular module, it's not going to blow your socks off. Our goal for this is purely to display data on a page from the database. So we'll take a look at the before and after anyway. So this is our before view. Absolutely nothing, just an empty command prompt window, and this is where we're starting. And at the end of this module, this is where we're going to get to. Now, I appreciate this doesn't look like very much, but these values that appear on the page, these are being displayed from being pulled in via our API from our database. And this is what we're going to get to, so we can confirm that our SPA can talk to our API, which can talk to our database, and then we can return this and display it on the page. Okay, so now we've seen what we're going to look at. Let's get started.